Be out here at 2, before 2.
Okay, so they got it for me.
Awesome.
Oh, once more. You're good to go.
Perfect. All right, we are on our last session today. Thanks for everybody sticking with me in the program. It's been fun. Believe it or not, it's 5 weeks ago we started this little journey, with today being the final session on negotiating strategies. So what I'm going to share with you today is some of the psychology behind negotiating, some of the tactics behind negotiating. And yeah, so last grabbing the workbook. So you'll be on page 57 of your workbook as the start page. And I'm going to share at the end of the session 2 techniques, strategies in negotiating. One's called the reduce to the ridiculous, and the other is called the casino close. So those are 2 kind of helpful negotiating strategies that you can use at the kitchen table, whether it's for a buyer or for a seller. And I'll use Matt with me to reduce the numbers to ridiculous and stuff. You'll enjoy it. I think most people that I've taught those 2 techniques to have used them in their business, which is great. So we'll start with the first session, and I will, if you can keep the time on me there, Matt, and have me done say by 1:35, 1:40. I have a meeting I have to be on at 2 o'clock. I think I should be able to get us in before 1:30 though. Anyhow, first slide, here we go. One of my favorite quotes of all times from JFK. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. And so this was done during 1962-ish, I think, is the Cuban Missile Crisis. If anybody knows history, the world was almost at an end during that time, where the Russians were putting nuclear weapons into Cuba, and the Americans did a naval blockade around there, and the world almost ended up in World War III at that time. And JFK set out this strategy team that he had at the White House that started negotiating with the Nikita Khrushchev, who was literally the counterpart in Russia. And so it took 13 days. The world sat on the precipice of a nuclear war for 13 days. And this was one of the mantras from this XCOM group that he had at the White House. His brother, Robert, was part of this XCOM group. And essentially, they walked the world back from a nuclear war by not being fearful of that being the end consequence, like not being afraid of this could be the outcome. We know that's the outcome, so let's not be fearful of that. Let's just get down and negotiate the best outcome solution for both parties. And JFK, of course, President of the United States, unfortunately, was assassinated way too soon. Had he had another term, you may not have seen the whole Vietnam War thing happen, because his policy was to pull the troops out of Vietnam, which did not happen after he was assassinated. And also, you may see the last name is very similar to my last name. And that's not a coincidence. Back in Ireland, our families, generations and generations and generations ago, evidently were related. We were from the same part of Ireland. His mother's family were actually direct descendants of families of mine in Ireland 200 years ago, before they all came over to North America. So I've always been a big JFK fan. I have a huge library of biography books, but this is something important. Why I start this course with that and that kind of little story is that I always feel, and I've always observed, that realtors take the approach that they don't want to negotiate because they're afraid to. And what does that mean? That means that they don't want to go face to face with another realtor because they're terrified of maybe making a mistake. They're terrified of being negotiating with somebody that has more knowledge, more experience, does more transactions, whatever the case may be. A lot of realtors that I talk to, are we okay?
Yeah. Centering you.
Okay. A lot of realtors take that approach and say, okay, well, I'd rather just email the offer, or I'd rather just send it by DocuSign or whatever platform you're going to use, which I think is a cop-out. You know, quite frankly, the best transactions, the best experiences you're going to have as realtors are ones you do face-to-face transactions with the other realtor. One, you're going to get out of this kind of fear-based system, learn things you'll never have learned before, and most likely get positive outcomes. When it's a face-to-face interaction and you humanize both parties, the seller side, the buyer side, then it traditionally puts transactions together. If you're just launching by text or DigiSign or email these offers, there's no personalization. There's no context for who's buying the house. For instance, if I was bringing a buyer to a house where it was a family that raised their family for 30 years and I have a young couple with young kids, it's really cool, smart thing to humanize this young couple that's going to create the same kind of memories that the family that's selling has created in the home. Gives them peace of mind that who they're selling it to is somebody that's in a similar situation they were in 30 years. Believe me, it actually puts deals together, right? So don't be afraid. And remember I shared with you the acronym of FEAR? Did I ever share that with you guys? The acronym for FEAR? FEAR is false evidence appearing real. It's an acronym for FEAR. False evidence appearing real. What does that mean? It means that it's a phantom or it's a ghost. You can't see it, you can't touch it, can't eat it, can't squeeze it. Fear is not that table. Fear is not my noggin. It's a phantom, it's a ghost. So why do you let that overwhelm you, take your anxiety and panic levels to these extreme, right? So realizing that it's not real and putting in cognitive kind of barriers and blocks to what's not real, identifying it and standing up to it. So the other acronym for a fear would be face. This is the positive one. Face everything and rise. Face your fears. Face everything and rise is the way to replace the word fear, which I told everybody fear, we said we go to class. False evidence appearing real is what it is, right? Face everything and rise is the alternative to the fear, the ghost. There we go. All right. Next slide. So here's the kind of psychological breakdown of what it looks like for the traits of a good negotiator. So the first one is emotionally stoic, calm and collected. And in brackets, I've put this word, these couple words called Few Good Men. That is an actual movie. We used to actually show the clip that we talked about, but it's so much harder now with drawing it down off the internet. So maybe next time we'll actually, can we grab the clip and just embed it in?
Potentially.
Okay, cool. I'd like to do that. In the movie Few Good Men, Tom Cruise, remember I told you my Tom Cruise story before? There was Demi Moore. There was, what's the guy, Jack Nicholson. If you've not seen this movie, highly recommend it. It's by Aaron Sorkin. He's the guy that created the series The West Wing, if you ever saw that back in the 2000s to about 2010. In this movie, Tom Cruise is a lawyer. Demi Moore is a lawyer, and there's a third lawyer. Jack Nicholson is actually let's call it the guilty party type of thing, or he's the accused, let's say that, right? And so they're going to court, and it's in a military setting. It's a military judge advocate general court setting. And before they go in, Tom Cruise gives the other two lawyers that are on the team, but Tom Cruise is the lead lawyer. He gives them the kind of rules of engagement of how he wants them to behave in the courtroom. And so he says to Demi Moore and the other characters, the other lawyer character, listen, when we go in there, we're sitting at our table, no matter what the witness may say, no matter how damaging their testimony may be against our clients, just stay there, remain calm and stoic. Don't have any responses. Don't get upset. Don't get angry. Don't get worried. Don't panic. Just sit there. Because if we do those things, the jury who's sitting there, to deliberate later on whether our clients are guilty, they're going to see we reacted like, oh my God, the expert witness doctor said this, said that, and And we're terrified of that. We don't have any response to that. So that was what he said before they went into court. Remain calm. Well, one of the first witnesses was an expert, a witness in medicine. And that person was saying some things that were not good for the client, their client. And Demi Moore's character did not remain calm and collected. She reacted to what was happening. And she reacted in such a way that the judge had to admonish her and tell her to calm down, sit down. It's an expert witness. And so she made a spectacle of herself and set her clients potentially backwards as far as the overall court case. So I always put that in. And if you've never seen the movie, watch it. It's a longer movie. It's about 2.5 hours long, but it's phenomenal. Just from an entertainment perspective, it's really, really neat. But in that one particular setting, and then to watch what Demi Moore does is amazing to see. And it's something that for you at the kitchen table or in the office when you're doing the offer negotiations, no matter what somebody says to you, may come out of left field and trip you up completely. You're not expecting it, not anticipating it. Remain calm. Inside, yeah, you could be like, oh my God, like, I don't know what's going on. But nobody knows that inside I'm trying to process this thing that caught me off guard. So remain calm, okay? Situational awareness. This is the big picture. So zooming out at 40,000 feet, like an airplane looking down. So when you're in the airplane looking down, we all look pretty small. When we're on the ground, we all look huge. And it's being able to transfer back and forth from that type of perspective. And then from the 360 perspective, right? So that's taking everything. Right now, if you were to look forward, you don't have a 360 perspective, right? You only have a 180, right? There's 90, 180, 360 for the rest here, right? We all understand that? So right now, if I'm looking out here, I have no idea that if somebody was behind me, they could be sticking their tongue out at me. They could be, you know, coming up to hit me from behind. I don't know these things, right? And so you want to be able to kind of check these blind spots that exist back there, these blind spots. Why? Again, because you could get something coming out of the blue that's going to trip you up that you're not anticipating. So the more you're prepared at a high level and a zoomed in level, zoomed out, zoomed in, the less likely you're going to encounter those types of things. So knowing as much as you can, the context of what you're doing, the less likely you're going to experience this. There was a great study in university when I was there. As an undergrad, 1989, 92. So what's the math on that? 34 years ago, 35 years ago. You know, first year students, university, if you've ever been one, you get to be guinea pigs in a lot of psychology experiments. I don't know if anybody's ever gone through university or college. Anyhow, one of the ones I participated in was a study that used video. And so we had to watch players playing baseball on a baseball diamond. So, you know, baseball diamonds are very big, right? And there's a thing called an infield, right? Say this is the baseball diamond here. I'm not a very good drawer. Pitcher, catcher, 1, 2, 3. There's an outfield, outfield, outfield. And so our instructions from the assessors were to watch what was happening in the infield. And so the players on the video were throwing the ball back and forth to each other, right? The first base was throwing the third, the pitcher. So we were watching that, and they wanted us to track the number of balls thrown to each other. Pretty simple, right? So at the end of the experiment, it was like a 3-5 minute video, not much longer. You know, they went along, well, Mike, what did you observe? Well, I saw, 17 passes or throws. Perfect. And John saw 15 and Mary saw 9, whatever. And then the assessor asked the question of all of us, who saw the elephant in the outfield? We're like, pardon me? Who saw the elephant walk through the outfield? So there was an elephant when they replayed the video, right? That elephant was there the first time. None of us saw it because we were so focused here. They said, now watch the video and look in the outfield. And sure enough, a big freaking elephant walked across the outfield. How is that possible that you couldn't see that? Why? Because we didn't take the zoomed out approach. We were so focused, and by giving commands too, like we were told, watch the infield and watch the amount of throws back and forth. So we didn't see an elephant that was clearly visible when we watched it again after we were told the elephant was there walking across the uphill. That's how you can, unfortunately, put blinders on and have blind spots for things in life by not having an open mind, right? Having an open kind of 360 view. So it's kind of interesting. You all walked out of there going, well, let's go have some beers, because that was really crazy. Find common ground and allies. You'll know right away when you're in a situation whether you have any allies or whether or not there's any common ground you can make that. You're going to make that assessment very quickly. My experience is usually one of the spouses, if it's a spousal situation, is one that's going to be your ally, right? Find out who that is. If it's the lady in the equation, usually you have much better positive outcomes in that situation. If it's the gentleman, like, so let's say myself and my wife will be the one that makes the ultimate decision, and I will gladly acquiesce to that decision. And so if she's on side for something like she is right now and doing a couple of more things around our house, I just nod and say, thank you. Okay, let's do that. You'll have a positive outcome. If the decision maker, and let's be honest, like the guy from the decision maker too, right? I'm just being facetious here with my story, but if the decision maker is not your ally, you got to get them on to be your ally, right? And so that's through the relationship and developing a rapport. If you're face to face, way better likelihood that you're going to get the ally and find common ground. It's so much easier to say no to people, to dismiss people when you're dealing with them on the phone or through, text and through emails and things like that. Much easier to let people down. But when you're face to face, it's a lot more difficult, right? So that's why I encourage you, as I said earlier, get face to face. Any opportunity you can get face to face, take advantage of it. Now I know a lot of realtors on the listing side don't want anything to do with face to face either. Why? Because they're afraid. They don't want to be caught off guard by a more sophisticated and intelligent educated realtor. But push for it. Try and get those face to face. Allow things to unfold. Basically, get out of the way. I've listened for years to realtors sabotaging their own transactions because they put themselves in the middle of something that they shouldn't. Just let the thing unfold. If the decision's being made and it's a okay decision, it's one that's going to benefit the decision makers, get out of the way. Don't let your own personal feelings or opinions get in the way of that. And I did that a couple of times in my career. I'll share one good story. There was an area in Brampton that I still to this day I'm not a big fan of. We call them zero lot lines in Brampton. Zero lot lines. They're detached homes, but the detached homes don't have a separate or a standardized landscape for where the house sits. So let's say when you drive into a detached subdivision, and this is the front lawn, like, okay, this is the road. Property here, property here, property here, property here. Again, I'm a terrible drawer. Believe it or not, my daughter, 98 in art. She is an unbelievable artist. I have not passed that gene on whatsoever. Anyways, this is a standardized lot. When you look down the street, all the lots are in unison, right? Or everybody follows me, right? In the zero lot line, it's across the street. You could have one right up close. You could have the lot for the next property there, one here, one back here, one back here. So when you're looking down the road, it's all over the place, okay? They're called zero lot lines. And they were able to build those back in the 60s and 70s. There's lots of areas like this in Brampton. The H section, the J section, the parts of the K section. There's this whole area in Brampton, the east side, Bramalea area that have these. they were able to do higher density. So they were able to build way more houses in these zero lot lines. Well, I've always not liked the zero lot lines. And did I get myself in the middle and get myself in the way of decisions? Yeah, I brought my own personal, like, I don't like this, guys. Let's go to one of these like normal ones. The benefit to the buyers here was they were much less expensive. They're more economical, right? But I let my own personal kind of distaste for that type of property interfere with sales. To the point there, one client of mine said, Mike, like, I know you've told us this 10 times, but we want to live here. We're giving you permission to not worry about us wanting to buy here. Like, they literally said that to me. And that's when the light bulb actually went on in my career, going, I got to get out of the way. Now let my own personal feelings and sentiments and opinions factor into things, right? So try not to allow that to happen. Relationships, we've talked about that 1,000 times. Your whole business is about on relationships. Relationships with buyers, sellers, your brokerage, realtor friends and peers in the industry, the staff here. We're all building relationships. Be able to be persistent, patient, and creative. This is going to come with experience and taking courses like this, listening to other realtors, listening to tapes, DVDs. As I said earlier, before we started recording, I'm going to get Matt to send you some dialogues, audio recording dialogues for, and probably a zip file because there's lots of them, and they're from Floyd Wickman. He was the guy I trained under in the 90s when I first started my career. His dialogues then are as relevant today, 30 something years later. Believe me, they're gold. Recognize nonverbal cues. What is a nonverbal cue? Well, if you're sitting at the table and somebody's got their hands crossed and they're not even looking at you, or they're looking away, then you're probably dealing with somebody who doesn't really want to be there, doesn't care about what you're saying, they're not engaged. That's a nonverbal cue. Versus you got somebody that's at the table leaning in and like every word you're saying, I'm hanging on every word. That's an engaged person. That's somebody that really wants to be a part of the situation. Or you could have somebody that's in the middle. It's kind of just leaning back like this. So they're not disengaged, but they're not engaged. They're kind of in the middle. So your job is to bring them into the engaged stage, right? People are twiddling with something, a pen, they're not engaged. So look for these non-verbal cues. Look for eye contact too. Some people, their personalities do not like, because they're introverted, to connect in the eyes. I'm an eye contact person. I like to look at people's eyes. So I like actually teaching both online and having people in the audience, because I get to feel and sense, your level of engagement and interest in what we're talking about. If I don't look in your eyes and see that, then I'm not going to be able to navigate you through where I need you to be navigated through, basically, right? Never take anything personal. This is something that we as realtors unfortunately wear on our sleeve all the time, right? We take it personal. They're criticizing Mike Kennelly. No, they're not. Mike Kennelly's not being criticized. You're not being criticized. Don't take it personal. The business transaction, when it really gets distilled down to the business transaction side of things, do not take it personal. Learn from your past experiences, positive and negative ones. I've shared with you, I've had negative ones in my career. I'm not perfect, but I learned from each and every one of them, so I'd never do it again, right? If you've got negative experiences and that's holding you back and preventing you from doing things, let them go. Like, nobody's written a book about you or put a Netflix series on your mistakes, so who cares? Move on. Is willing to walk away. This is a great concept, and in negotiating circles that you can take courses at Harvard. You can take, there's this lady, Susie Cummins, that comes into that stuff with us. They teach a thing called BATNA. So after the course, just Google that and you can get all the kind of details on what BATNA is about. That's basically stands for Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreement. Means what's your walk away point, essentially? What is the line in the sand that you're walking away no matter what? There's no more that you can negotiate, right? What's your BATNA? And so when I was working with buyers, and working with sellers, I wanted to know what that line in the sand was. Now, it changes. So yesterday, Matt told me that they wouldn't take anything less than 1.4 million for their property. That's what he told me yesterday. But lo and behold, today we're doing offers, and we were doing a call for offer day, and we had 5 offers come in, and your BATNA was 1.4, but there's nothing at 1.4. Everything's at 1.25, 1.3, 1.320, and the best one was 1.370. So now his line in the sand yesterday was 1.4, and we've worked all these offers up to the highest one is 1,370,000. Does he change his BATNA? Possibly. Possibly not. Remember those numbers, 1.4 and 1.37, because I'm gonna teach you to reduce to the ridiculous close if he does not move off his BATNA at that point. Okay, I'm gonna teach you how you can bridge a 30,000 or 50 or $100,000 gap. Okay, but you gotta find out what is this BATNA, best alternative to negotiate agreement. Your walk away. This is the line in the sand you're not going to cross, and it does evolve. It will change. Our next slide, which will be yes.
I wanted to ask about this learn from the past experiences.
Yes.
What is your opinion on, say, a client who has not behaved well? Suppose last transaction we did with him, and then he has not responded well to our messages, texts, and he's kind of ghosting us.
Okay.
And then again we get an opportunity to meet with him. But
Okay.
it was a negative experience for us. What should we do then? Whether we should try to convince them, or we should be sure enough that he's just trying to use us?
Yeah. So can everybody hear the? Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good mic pickup.
Okay. So you are making a business decision whether or not that's somebody you want to work with. Remember we talked about the 8+ of A's, B's, C's, and D's. These are the deletes. Does this person qualify as a delete in your system? Is this the person that, and I think I shared with you my garbage truck analogy. Everybody has garbage in their garbage truck. If you use the analogy for a garbage truck, and people that are D's drive around with their garbage trucks and they back up onto your beautiful front lawn and dump their garbage on your front lawn. Your choice to allow them to do that. Did I share that kind of analogy with you guys? Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So you have to make a very difficult decision because, of course, our industry is connected to the fee system. You get paid by fees, not by salary. So is your willingness, your why to be in this business to get that fee with this type of client more important to you than the whys you chose to get into the business? So it's a very, personal decision for you. I can't answer that for you because I don't know the absolute what happens on the grassroots level with you. But if you use that metric and that rubric to try and figure out, do I want to be the next 3 months of my life, the next 2 months of my life, next 5, whatever that number looks like, do I want to be dealing with this person? Okay. This is just the fundamentals, knowing Rubba 2002. This is now called Tressa. Phase 2, we're waiting for phase 2 to be passed. This is going to happen very soon, within the next two months, maybe tops 3. Know all the standard forms. These forms are being amended and changed. There's going to be 92 new forms coming out from Maria that are edited and modified and brand new created. And Rico is also coming out with a new form that will replace working with a realtor with a new, and working with a realtor is not a contract form, as we all know. That's the form that talks about the different forms of relationships you can have, right? You can have a client relationship, a customer, and multiple representation. And it's in a trifold, or basically one page if you print it out flat. The new Rico one is 12 pages. It's going to be fun once we get a copy of it. We haven't got copies of this yet from Rico, but it's going to be fun for us now to learn how to get that document signed because, quite frankly, teaching people how to get a one-page form signed sometimes is difficult, right? But this is going to be mandatory, required to have the signatures or at least proof that you provided the content that's in there if somebody refused. You can't put a gun to somebody's head and say, sign this document. But if they refuse to sign, you're going to have, I would almost say at this point, video evidence that you say, hi, Matt, I understand I've presented this, you understand the context, but you don't want to sign it. Yes, is that true? Yes, correct. Bang, I got a video evidence of it. Because RICO is going to be, let's just say, unforgiving in complaints going forward for fines and whatnot. They're going to get very strict once phase 2 comes along.
Maybe they would have made it very self-explanatory, and that's why it's
Who knows?
Thinking, but
We
yeah.
haven't seen the documents yet, so we're waiting for that.
Do we know when?
That's within, well, they're gonna have to give us this stuff before they pass the legislation. That's why they pushed back. It was April 1st when they were gonna first launch this. Of course, that was April Fool's Day. Would have joked that would have been, but all this stuff in our hands and not having given us any of the paperwork, right? So the politicians know that, because I've been whispering in their ears now for months and months and months, because I do have a personal relationship with the actual minister that oversees our whole business in Ford's government. And so they understand completely that we need to have this information before they go live with it. So let's say they pass legislation in 3 months, we should have probably this stuff in our hands for at least a month before they do that. Okay. Here is a question: who are you working with or negotiating with? Which one? Or is there an option 5? All the above. You're negotiating with everything, everybody there. And the one you're hardest on is yourself. My point before, get out of the way. Get yourself out of the way. Don't be part of a problem. Being part of a problem in a real estate transaction is never good. Next one, verbal negotiations. These are little questions that you should know the answers to, because they should teach you this in the courses, right? Should you verbally negotiate an offer? It's either yes or no. What do you think? So we have a yes and we have a no. We have no from Chandler. So let's say maybe as well as the third option, just to make it even more complicated. Okay, we won't answer that yet for you. Are they legal and binding if they are verbal? That's yes or no. There is no maybe on that one. What do you say? No in the room. Anybody else? Chandler's saying yes to that one. So we have both. And does anybody, before I push the next slide out, does anybody know the actual law in Ontario that governs the sale of real estate in APSs? There's actually a law. Does anybody know the answer to that? So it's called the no. It's called the law of statute of fraud and limitations. That's actually the law that sits on the books in the Commonwealth law for selling real estate. It's called the statute of fraud and limitations. So should we negotiate verbally? The answer is sure, maybe. You can have the conversations with the other realtor who's having conversations with either it's a buyer side or seller side. They're just conversations though. So let's say the word negotiate though, we'll change it as conversations. The problem is whatever you talk about verbally is not legal and binding. Not. Because of the statute of fraud limitations. It has to be committed to paper. And the parties that are negotiating that, being the buyer and the seller, have to both sign those documents, those agreements, a purchase and sale documents, for it to be binding. So yes, in our system, a lot of what we do is verbal, just to set the tone, do the jousting, do all that kind of stuff. Whatever is said there. So like say Matt is the other realtor I'm negotiating with, and Matt makes a commitment that his seller would accept 1.1 1,370,000, right? Because you remember you said you were 1.4 before. So I get the verbal commitment. So then we send an offer back from now the buyer to Matt. And guess what Matt does? Doesn't accept it, the 1.370,000. He signs it back at 1.4. Well, hang on, Matt, you told me verbally that the seller would accept that. We have an accepted agreement. It's binding because you verbally said that. No, it's not verbally. It's not binding because it was verbal. It needs to be put in writing. Everybody clear on that? So it's just one of those kind of nuances we find ourselves in the business. Because I get questions like this all the time from other brokerages and other realtors. Well, your realtor told my realtor that your seller would accept this. Well, great. My realtor is not the seller. They're not on the deed. They don't have the authority to bind the sale of the property. Only the seller does and the buyer does. Do we have any signatures to that effect? No, we don't. Great, because it doesn't exist. It's not a real deal. Well, it's unethical. It's unethical to have conversations. Okay, sure. Make your complaint. Oh, I'm going to go to Rico. Go ahead. Make your complaint. Well, they never make complaints, by the way. Reasons to not verbally negotiate. So an offer is not valid unless executed in writing, and there it is, statute of frauds. That's the actual, I think that's on, what page is that on? 58. Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful. A lot of people in our industry don't even know. Most brokers have no idea that that's actually the law that governs us. Okay. It is hot as Hades in here right now.
You can turn your fan up a little bit.
Woo! Are you hot?
Yeah, there's like this, it's just warm air.
It just got real hot in here. I hope everybody at home is in an air-conditioned space, because this is like this is good on. Wow. Okay, next slide. Making the best offer. You want to make an offer the seller, if you're on the buying side, is afraid to turn down. This would have been amazing strategy up until about 3 months ago, right? Because sellers were not in the driver's seat. The seller right now is in the driver's seat. On the buyer's side, right now, this little dialogue is brilliant, okay? This is the have no regrets dialogue. So the buyer is now finding themselves in a situation where there's 3 offers, 6 offers, 10, 12. We've had 37 offers on one property out here in the Mississauga area. So we're back to the rules gone bonkers real estate model that we had last year, right? Remember that last year. This is a question I always used to put to my buyers when they were stalled. Put in your best offer when you wake up tomorrow, win or lose, you'll put in your absolute best. So when you're in a competition situation and the buyer is struggling to come up with that number, they're looking to you. And I would never be, as a realtor, wanting to give them the number, because then they can blame me for giving them the number and for losing the property or getting the property and feeling that they overpaid the next day or the next week. So never do that. But Matt, you know what? Matt, here's what my advice is. There's 7 offers right now. You really like the property. That's why we're here. That's why we're putting this offer together. Have no regrets tomorrow when you wake up, Matt. What does that mean? Put a number on the paper right now that is your absolute best, because we might not get a second chance. And if you win tonight, if we are successful, fantastic. But if we don't, and you didn't put your best offer forward, and you wake up tomorrow and we find out that the house actually sold for less than what your offer would have been, you'll have regrets. So let's have no regrets. Win or lose, Matt, wake up tomorrow morning and you're happy with that. Does that make sense? Perfect. Get the number, right? It's the no regrets. Let's win or lose, wake up tomorrow with peace of mind. I'm very philosophical, by the way, with real estate, buyers and sellers, buying properties and the sellers selling it to buyers. Meaning that, yes, today we might have lost this listing, this opportunity, but that meant that this really wasn't the property for them. And I know in the situation, in the moment, it's almost impossible for a buyer to understand that. Like they just lost their forever home. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, my experience is, no, there's a better house waiting for you. Believe me, I've seen it hundreds and thousands of times. And it's true. That was not meant for them. There always is something that comes better along for them. Next one.
It's destiny, very rare.
It's destiny, for sure, 100%. It's happened to me in my own personal life where, I've lost out on bids, right? And I thought, oh my God, I'll never get the same thing. And a better one comes along a week, a month, 2 months later, and I go buy that. So it's temporary. The loss that they feel is a temporary loss. You're trying to help them through that, okay? What are the critical elements of the offer? These are all the critical elements, but really, as we all know, that's the number one biggest element of any offer is the price, more so right now than ever, right? We're back into the seller is looking at the price. They're not looking at the closing date. They're not looking at your title search date. They're not looking that you wanted the appliance. They don't care about that stuff anymore. Right now, this is what they're focused in on, right? We probably are reaching close to that ceiling. I think, another couple of weeks, maybe another month and a half, we'll have this kind of activity. But by July, early July, mid-July, I think we're going to go back into a balanced market. If the Bank of Canada should make an interest rate move, that'll definitely put us back into a balanced or buyer's market, okay? That's why what you do for the consumer, buy, sell side is so important. It's having your finger on the pulse on a daily, weekly basis. That's why it's critical for you to keep in touch with us and get all of the information that we provide you through Signature Live, through other sources, so you know what's happening day to day. Because this real estate market can pivot immediately on a dime at any given time. Next one, the deposit. This is just stuff from school. The deposit shows your good faith, right? And it shows, and on a buyer's side, you don't want to tie up too much of the funds. We're experiencing right now some unfortunate situations where selling side are delaying signing mutual releases or not signing them all together. Because there's only 3 ways we can get a deposit money back from a transaction, right? The first is a completed deal, which is what everybody wants, a completed deal. Number 2 is a mutual release. If we don't get a mutual release signed by the parties, that money's not coming out of trust account. Number 3 is a court order. We're actually having to go through that unfortunate situation, going to court and getting the buyer's money back. Here's something that in fact, I shared this with an agent today that's putting an offer in. On your offers in agreement purchase and sale, you have 3 options right now on how you can deliver a deposit. Upon acceptance, folks, is the default in the program. You do nothing, it'll show and pop up as upon acceptance. Upon acceptance, what does upon acceptance mean first? I'm gonna take my jacket off. What does upon acceptance mean? I always like asking this question because I get so many different answers, and there's only one real.
It is immediately on the offer. Oh, sorry, upon acceptance is 24 hours.
So we got 24 hours. What else do we have? Anybody else have any ideas?
The acceptance part of the purchase agreement is signed.
So confirmation of acceptance. So when that's
So after that's signed.
Call it confirmation of acceptance. Okay. Any others? No. It's actually, you were right. It's the first class I've had in probably 10 years that somebody's given the right answer from the get-go. Upon acceptance, when you read what it says on the front page of the agreement purchase and sale, it says 24 hours. 24 hours. Define 24 hours for me, please.
From the time of confirmation of acceptance.
Yes. And what else?
And next day up to the end of the day. End of the business.
You're telling me. I'm asking you. You're now asking me the question. I'm asking you the question.
I think it's 24 hours after the confirmation of acceptance, exactly 24 hours.
Okay, all right. Are we factoring in statutory holidays and Saturday, Sunday as well?
No,
Saturday, Sunday is included or not included?
included
Included. So if we accepted an offer
on Friday night.
at 9:30 p.m. Saturday, when does that check have to be in?
9:30 by Sunday.
9:29. So just so everybody knows and is clear, this is one of the biggest failings we have in offers. 24 hours means 24 hours. If you accepted an offer July 1 at 10:30 p.m. July 1 is a statutory holiday. It's Canada Day. If you chose upon acceptance, your deposit check has to be into listing brokerage on July 2nd at 10:29 p.m. at the latest. Okay. Holidays, Saturday, Sunday are factored in 24 hours. Most people think they're not. They are. The consequences of not delivering, by the way, you've breached the terms of the agreement of purchase and sale. So we hear all the time where, oh, my buyer's not going to bring the deposit, the deal's dead because you need the deposit to make it firm. No, that's not true. If you're giving advice like that, you'll be standing in front and beside your buyer in the court of law if the seller pursues court legal action. If that's the advice you're given, do not give that advice. Upon acceptance means 24 hours, bring it in or don't. The seller has 4 options in the event that it's not delivered. They can say, okay, Matt, you're late. I'll agree to your late and I'll give you another 24 or another 48 hours. So the seller is being generous. The seller can say, no, we're in breach and I'm going to remarket the property and I'm going to accept any other offer that comes in. And I'm going to hold you to a standard that whatever happens, I could come back and pursue legal action against you. I can pursue now legal action against you. Your deposit, even though you haven't delivered it, is called liquid damages. That's lost. If the seller goes and sues your buyer, and actually I'm going to give you a document to share with everybody that I prepared for this situation. You can sue for the deposit as liquid damages, even though you haven't received them, and any shortfall the seller experienced from what your offer was and what the subsequent offer was. So if you accepted less money to the second offer, that's a damage to the delta between that. If you sold it for, so let's say Matt's offer was 1.4 million. Let's say the next buyer, we sold it for 1.5 million. So we actually, as a seller, we benefited an extra $100,000. What happens here with the deposit? Does the buyer get the deposit back then because the seller actually made more money? Say your deposit was 50 grand is what you're going to put as deposit, right? That you didn't deliver. Does the buyer now not have to be worried about paying 50 grand because you sold it for 100 grand more? Here's the answer. Yes. Liquidated damages, you forfeit that right away. Doesn't matter that you sold it for more. Now you're not gonna be able to sue for lost damages for if you sold it for 1.3. If you sold it for 1.3, you're down 100 grand, right? Plus the 50. You're suing for 150 grand, plus any other incidentals, extra legal costs. If the closing dates were different, say this offer closed a month later, well, you can factor in the extra property taxes you had to pay, the extra utilities, all those types of extra fees get embedded into the lawsuit. Now, here's the reality. 99.999% of sellers do not take the legal action. It's off the table, okay? I will have Matt send to you later today a document I created with the help of a lawyer for what you can do in these circumstances, because our buyers have to know this. If you're working with buyers, they have to understand when they put their pen to paper and there's an accepted agreement and they've chosen this upon acceptance or herewith or as other anything, they've done a confirmed offer. They're bound by the terms of that offer. And by not delivering the deposit is not a, hey, there's no deal here. There is a deal, okay?
I still have it, so I can send it to them after this.
You got it in
The
there?
deposit not delivered.
Perfect.
Prepared it for the last one.
Okay, great. Thank you. What should you do? So the situation I dealt with today with one of our realtors, was a bit of a complicated situation because our buyer is in Chicago right now. And the listing brokerage does not take email transfers or wire transfers for deposits. So we set up an as otherwise described situation. So you make that on page 1 as otherwise described. Then in your schedule, you put in a date that you know that your buyer is going to be able to get to a bank and get a money draft printed. So our buyer comes back on Sunday evening. So in our situation that's going in today, it'll be the buyer, it's otherwise described, the buyer does hereby agree to provide the deposit in the amount of blah, blah, blah to the seller, seller's realtor on or before, and I think whatever, June 5th is Monday or something, or June 6th, right? No problem, problem solved. Because if we had gone here, and this is what our realtor's actual statement said in the agreement, and then she told me that, hey, he's in Chicago, can't get the money, she would have put her buyer in breach if it was accepted tonight. And our buyer wouldn't have been able to get the money because he's in Chicago and they didn't do email transfers. Problem, like we could have been in big trouble, okay? Best payment method, this is it here, certified check or draft. We do money drafts, right? It's real money. If you don't do a certified check, you do a regular check. So we cannot prevent somebody from giving us a regular check because it is considered to be monetary money. If they need that money returned, it could take up to 21 days to clear. So even though in your bank, online banking, you see the money's in and then the money is actually gone to the account, it can take upwards, believe it or not, 21 days for the actual institution to fully clear those funds. So if the buyer needs the money back and they've only given a personal check, they might not get it back from the listing brokerage for that long. And then there's listing brokerages that have accounting cycles that, not like us, we're every day. We pay everything every day except for the weekend, right? There's companies that do it once a week. There's companies that do it once every 2 weeks. So if you get in the right cycle, you might get the money back. If not, you're waiting. What do we got here? Conditions. Cluster all your conditions together. When I was a listing realtor, the worst thing I could ever experience was an offer that came in, had a condition, and then a couple of clauses, statements, then another condition, statements, another condition. Put all of my conditions, all your conditions together so that the listing realtor and you can deal with them and work through them efficiently. Because it just, for me, it always disrupted the flow. Oh, you're okay. Here we go. It is hot in here. I'm ready to pass out. Irrevocable. What's the purpose? An irrevocable offer is the validity of that document. So if I send an offer to Matt with an irrevocable today at 6 p.m., if I do not, as the buyer's realtor, receive that back from you within that time period as an accepted offer, right? If you accepted all the terms, then it's not a valid offer. It became null and void. You can sign it back to me. You change buyer to seller and give me till 9 p.m. We go back and forth. The irrevocable is how long that offer is valid. And the most important part of it is the receipt part. So you have to be in receipt as the other party within the irrevocable period of that offer, okay? Length of time is situation determinant. The answer there is no. Nobody needs to reply to an agreement. There's basically 3 things you can do with an offer. You can accept it, decline it, or sign it back, okay? Those are your 3 choices. What happens? It becomes null and void. On your agreements of purchase and sale, I'm going to say it's clause 24 or 26. I can't recall exactly the number. There's a statement there. It says time is of the essence. In your agreements, anything regarding a time is critical. And if you exceed the time, then there's consequences to doing that. It could become null and void. There could become damages. Time is of the essence. So if you have deadlines, make sure you adhere to the deadlines of time, okay? Registering the offer was actually on our portal. There's a video or 2 or 3 of me or Michael Stothers and others that talk about the actual process of managing multiple offers and the offer process, particularly Bill 55 and the sequence of what you need to do. If you are registering an offer and a multiple offer, reach out to Michael, myself, Darren, Chris, Jeff, Sam. We can give you a kind of, Cole's Notes version of how it all works. But essentially, registering offers on a property, these are the 5 methods that RICO stipulates. The best one, of course, there is the offer itself, right? But what you're doing is you're making the commitment saying from the buying side, yes, Matt, I do have a signed offer. So maybe instead of sending him the offer, I send him the 801 as a strategy, okay? And if I don't send the offer, because once I've sent the offer to Matt, that offer is no longer my offer. That's now the seller's offer once he's in receipt of that. And he can accept that wholeheartedly, okay? Text, email, and fax. You hardly ever see anybody do text, email, or fax, either the offer or Form 801. By the way, Form 801, you may see this out there where listing officers are demanding it. It's not mandatory. Anybody that tells you from another brokerage that it's mandatory is incorrect. If you look at the top of the 801 form, they use the words evidence. The purpose of the Form 801 is to be used as evidence in the event that RICO launches a complaint into the offer process and then want to determine how many offers were disclosed. So if I'm the listing agent, Matt calls me up and says, hey, Mike, I've going to be submitting an offer. How many offers are registered on the property? I go, there's 11. Well, I make that statement verbally. I confirm it in writing. I better have 11 offers that I can prove to RICO that I had. Otherwise, I'm inflating the amount of offers, right? So RICO can launch an investigation if a complaint's made. And for this type of thing, that investigation is between 2 to 5 days. Whereas a bigger investigation is like 5 to 6 to 7 months. That is immediate. They will demand to see our evidence, and 801s are one of the ways we could prove that there was an offer registered, okay? So I'll have all the information. I'll have the offer came from Matt, he used brokerage signature, blah, 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 okay?
Will it have the details of the price and?
No. No.
Because
again, it's not a mandatory form. All it's saying is that I, as the realtor from the brokerage that I'm representing, have a signed, this is the key, signed offer. Do not be sending anything to another brokerage on the buying side unless you actually have the offer, the APS signed by your buyer. Okay? It's very, very, very important. Next one.
Yeah, before you go on. What if you submit an 801 to register an offer, and then your client gets cold feet and wants to not actually submit the offer itself?
Right.
You've already given an 801.
So it complicates matters, right? However, this is not your decision of changing your mind as the realtor. You're acting on behalf of your buyer who you've signed an offer. I've got the signed offer, right? I sent the 801. Buyer says, cold feet, I don't want you to send it. Well, you have to follow your client's instructions under fiduciary duty, under buyer agency. So you don't send it. And you let Matt know, who's the listing agent, that your buyer has instructed you not to send it. You've got your backup. Why? Because as I said, don't ever do anything without having it signed. You could always say, well, I had the signed offer and I was instructed not to send it. Can the other realtor make a complaint against you? Absolutely they can, right? Your evidence is going to be, well, Mr. RICO investigator, I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do for my buyer. Here's the signed offer. The buyer instructed me not to send it. You're going to get you're not going to get in trouble because you've done everything properly. Now, if you don't have a signed offer and they ask these things and you sent an 801 or a text email, now you're in trouble. Okay? You're not a party to the transaction.
Also has a choice to change the terms of the offer and send another offer if he wants to.
Sure. Right. So, the offer was 1.4. Buyer says, I changed my mind. Oh, okay. Well, you changed your mind. Well, why don't you just throw an offer in? We'll change the 1.2 down to 1.2. We know they'll never accept that. You could do that if you wanted to. Right. But you wouldn't get into trouble so long as you have everything documented. Document. This is, I talked about this before. Best strategy is to do it in person, right? Do not send your offers the day before. So let's say there's a call for offer date and it's a Sunday night. Don't send your offer right now. Send an 801. So that's putting you on the record that you have a signed offer, because the listing brokerage, because maybe the seller says, I don't want to do it on Sunday anymore, I want to now do it on Friday night, they may change the strategy. And if the listing brokerage doesn't know the rules and doesn't inform you and change the MLS listing, contact everybody that's seen it, that's shown it, registered offers, if they just go and sell it without doing that, then your buyer's lost the opportunity, right? This is the single largest complaint in Rico right now. This is an epidemic, and the fines are about $10,000 right now for that, for not notifying people and doing the changing on MLS. Again, if you're involved in a situation like this, please reach out to one of the management team. We'll walk you through this. I deal with this probably 5 or 6, 7 times a week on this stuff, okay? Just as long as you have the right process and the right documentation, you won't have any problems. It's trying to wing it on your own is when the problems usually arise. By fax, let's not even go there. My big joke with this one, I don't even know what the fax machine number of our company is. That's a truth.
We still get a lot of faxes though.
You really?
We do. I get them forwarded to my email. We get like 30 a day.
Come on.
That's how deals departments still communicate.
Oh,
They still send the invoices by fax 100% of the time.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oof. I can't stand fax.
Sorry, it doesn't auto-populate though.
What?
The fax number, like the business number for the brokerage populates. But
Oh, I don't know forms.
Yeah.
Oh, I can fix that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Matt's the tech. If you have any tech problems or issues, Matt's our guy. In fact, actually next week, a week today, I think we're going to do the signature live. Myself, Matt, and probably Darren will be on there because there's some changes that are currently, if you've logged on to Trev recently, and what is it called again?
Sky Slope. The Sky Slope is the new one,
It's the one they're migrating to.
and Athenticine is the one that's going away.
Right. So Athenticine, which is the platform you can use for all your offer forms, and you'll have custom forms and stuff like that. So Trev came out with an announcement last week, I think it was, that they're ceasing that service, free service on June 30th. It'll be you can pay for it. I think it's $130 we saw.
128.
120. So I rounded up 130. It's gonna be plus taxes,
Just like DocuSign, Authentisign.
Correct.
Version is over.
Correct. This will be a paid service. So if you like Athenticine, you can still use it, but you'll have a fee now associated with it. Anyways, we're going to talk about that next week. So we're doing a deep dive researching this for you guys. And it's we have a lot of our realtors that use that platform. The SkySlope one though is I think a better platform, but we'll figure it out.
The Athenticine, the counterpart is DigiSign, and it's okay.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of stuff to work out.
we have to work it out. We'll be on top of it. Don't you worry.
How is Sky Slope? Is it good? Or?
Very good.
It's okay. I'll explain more after.
Yeah. Did you put you better? Okay, we're not going to go through there. Counter offer. What is it? We talked about that. We know what a counter offer is. We're going back and forth. I always use the analogy that we're playing tennis. So I serve the ball to Matt's court. Matt serves back to me. As a realtor, though, I never wanted the ball to die in my court. I always wanted to put it back into Matt's court, right? Back and forth. But let the deal die on their court, not my court. Sellers, good strategy to allow the buyer to present their offer. Yeah, sure, why not? Just let the buyer's realtor humanize their buyers. It might be helpful for our sellers to hear that's a young family that's going to grow the same kind of memories, as I said earlier, in this home that this family created 30 years worth of memories, right? So absolutely. Should you prepare the seller before the presentation? Well, what's happening actively in the market? So if we listed this house 30 days ago, it's taken 30 days to get a listing. A lot's occurred in 30 days in new sales, new listings expired. So you're going to want to educate your seller as much as you can at that time, right? Any disadvantages are to that? None whatsoever as far as I'm concerned, right? more education, easier decision-making. Any advantages, same thing, easier decision-making process. You don't want to have anything tied up in the decision-making process that you can avoid. Multiple offers, best strategy working, multiple offers, a seller, buyer, put your very best offer in, the no regrets offer. This is what you want to do if you're on the buying side. On the seller side, if you are not happy with the 10 offers that came in, never sign one back, the best one, and hope that they accept that. If you want more money, you keep all of those offers with you and then say to the buyer's agents, look, the seller is making the decision. The offers are very close. We're giving you another opportunity to improve your offer. Sellers allotting 30 minutes or 45 minutes. If you can improve your offer, it would be very helpful for your buyer, right? But never release back your offers. Never give back the offers. Some people say, well, I want my offer back. They're not entitled to get it back. Because once they gave it to us as the listing side, it's our property, not their property. And what I've seen happen is agents giving it back and then they disappear. Or agents giving back the offer to this buyer's agent because they only had one copy, giving that copy back, and then they disappear. And then the seller's asking you, well, what happened to them? Well, I gave them the offer back. They said they were coming back, but they didn't. You screwed up. Seller's going to be very upset with you. So if you have that situation where there's only one offer they brought to you, you tell them to bring the buyer to here, to sign it here. Because you're not, if you give it back and they go away, you're the one that's going to be in the crosshairs of the seller vendor, okay? Use an up-to-date CMA, have available showing list and feedback. Feedback is an important thing. A lot of realtors do not, unfortunately, call you back and give honest feedback. Back when I sold, this was a matter of practice for all of us. We did that as a courtesy to each other. Now realtors are not really interested in doing that. A comprehensive net sheet. This is the purchase price minus all the fees, legals, mortgage, moving, like whatever it is that is added as a deduction to the top end purchase price. So we sold it for 1.5 million. Matt still had 350,000 on the mortgage, so we take that out. Maybe there's a discharge to the mortgage, legal fees, real estate fees, all these types of things, and you come up with from 1.5. The net is 1,395. There's 105,000 in expenses. Make sense? It's a good way to engage your sellers. Counterpoints, motivations and weaknesses from the buyers. If the buyer has sold their house already and they need to move into a property right now, that's a pretty good motivation for the buyer to maybe overpay if you could solicit and find that out. Preparation of low offers, educate and display. You're not going to see too many of those right now, but we saw lots of those for about 10 or 11 months last year to the beginning of this year with low balls. This is where the sellers were in a bind. They were in a situation where they literally only had one offer in 30, 40 days. And so they were at the mercy of the buyers. And saw how quickly that occurred last year. Like it turned on a dime once the interest rates started to move up. Let's imagine a world where Bank of Canada, in the next rate increase or rate decision, they increase the rate, or maybe it's they pause this one and make a rate increase in the next one after that. How quickly will the markets pivot? Very quickly, right? And so then you go back into a buyer's market. The best thing we could do right now is have a balanced market. And the only way I see we get a balanced market is if a lot of sellers decide right now to come to the market. Today is June the 1st. Historically, traditionally, if you look at the selling cycle curve, we're at the decline in the spring market right now. Like the next 2 weeks is usually historically still part of the spring market. Then we kind of bottom out third week of June, and we come back into a fall market in the second, third week of September. So the only thing I really hope is what's happening is that chart has been pushed out. So we're actually going to probably see all of June be a healthy market, and part of the beginning of July. So long as the Bank of Canada is not intervening with interest rates, we should see another 4 to 5, 6 weeks of very robust marketplace. And then the last two things, we got the two, look,
Skipped ahead one by accident. Can you go back real quick?
I can't.
Yeah, that was your next one.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know either.
I don't think I clicked it.
The bottom part, I'll just say, never send two offers on two properties. If both have been accepted, you've sold two homes to the buyer, basically, okay? I know it's almost like facetious for me to say that, but I'll tell you, once a year, without fail, I get a realtor that asks that question. So I always just point it out. Unless your buyer has the financial capability capacity to buy two properties tonight, don't go and put an offer over on Matt's listing and over on Mary's listing, okay? Unless they can afford both. Because if both are signed and accepted, your buyer's bought two properties. And I've had this happen before. I've also had situations where the seller has accepted two offers with the realtor. Fortunately, the last number of times, it's been the other brokerage that's done that. We've been one of the buying sides. And so the seller and the listing agent's mindset for that is that, well, whoever does the signs it back, gets it back to them first is the one that wins. That's not true, right? Because if both accept the offer, regardless of what time both accepted it, you've sold the home twice. So the last two occasions I've had with this, we've been able to extract a very nice, so we were the ones that backed out because they literally sold it twice. We would do what's called a caution on title if they chose the other offer. So we put a caution on title, means they can't transfer title on closing date, means they have to come and deal with us. So we kind of put that out there. Well, in the one, we got $10,000 for the buyer, and the other we got $22,000 for the buyer.
And what does RICO do, like if the seller is not cooperating in such cases?
RICO, with the seller not cooperating,
Like
they have no authority over what a seller or a buyer does. We as the registrants are the ones that they have authority over. But if a seller or buyer make a decision,
then the court has
it's a court of law. Yes. Small claims if it's under 35,000. Superior Court if it's $35,000 more. If you're going to sue for more than $35,000, you have to hire a lawyer. The lawyer's going to hit you with a retainer, probably looking at 10 grand for a retainer, and they charge like $400 or $500 an hour a trial lawyer on a minimum. You're going to court in Superior, you're $40,000 to $50,000, and if you're only suing for $40,000, $50,000, all of that money gets eaten up in legal fees. That's why I said before, 99.9999% of the time, there's no lawsuits. Very rare. But when they do happen, the meter runs up in costs. The courts in Canada do not, for the winners, allocate that you get all your legals covered. You get a small portion of it covered, but not all of it. So most people make that decision not to go to court. They mediate. Okay. The two closest, so the reduced to the ridiculous technique. Has anybody ever heard of this one before? The reduced to the ridiculous? I just said it, right? Yeah, okay. So seller, what did we say? 1.4, right? 1.4. Sorry, really bad.
I think we submitted 1.37. That was your example.
Okay, so we were $30,000 difference. It's a big number to the gap, right? 30,000. So Matt stalled at his 1.4, my buyer stalled at 1.37. So one of us, if we're going to use the reduce the ridiculous on the buyer side or seller side, we do something like this. All right. So the delta right now is $30,000. Matt's my buyer, okay? In this case, Matt. Come on, there we go. Okay, Matt, how long do you anticipate living here for?
30 years.
30 years?
30 years.
You want to be here for 30
Raise
years?
family, stay a little while.
Okay, 30 years. Let's divide 30 into what? 30,000. I want to know what it's going to be per year, okay? A per year cost for $30,000. What is it? Pretty easy number, right?
30,000 divided by 30 years is $1,000 a year.
So that's our cost, Matt. $1,000 a year for the next 30 years. Now, 30 years is a long time. Like, we probably should have done 10. Probably should have done 10.
10 years.
Let's do 10.
Bumped up to 3,000.
Yeah, because 30 is unrealistic. The actual average, sales itch cycle is about 7, okay? So we're going 30. We're there for 10, so that's $3,000. So Matt, right now, what's holding you back from accepting this offer for your dream home, this 10-year forever home that we're looking at, it's really $3,000 a year. You agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's real money, but it's not 30,000, it's 3,000. Well, let's look at that from another metric. What's that number divided by 12? Because there's 12 months in the year.
250
It's $250
a month.
So Matt, we're talking about for the next 10 years that we could probably find some savings in your budget of $250 a month. And we're saying no to your forever dream house where your kids will go to the school that you wanted to go to. You have the access to all the community services and to the rec centers, the walking trails that you were dreaming of for $250. Does that make sense for you to not go forward for $250? All right, so we're reducing to the ridiculous. We're taking $30,000 down to 3, down to 250. What's the other number we could do, Matt? Daily. So then we take 250, and what number are we going to divide by that?
31.
So we're gonna say the month is there's 31 days in a month. Some days we have 28. Some days we have 30, not 31. So we could do it like that, or we can do it for real, right? We could do the 3,000 and divide that by 365. That's going to be a more accurate per day. That's how I used to do it anyways, okay? So what's that number look like, Matt?
8.21.
So what you're saying, Matt, is your forever home with the right school for your kids, the right parks for your dogs, the right access points for transportation to get to your job, the white picket fence we've been looking for. So what you're saying is $8.21 is holding you back per day from making that decision right now. Does that make sense to you, to hold back $8.21, or should we just make this happen? So all the technique is reducing it down to a Starbucks coffee.
It's not far off these days.
That's why I say, like a Starbucks coffee is what, $4 down or something like that? So 2 of them.
You're for a black coffee with nothing in it, yeah. But real weed, it's closer to that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. And you got a Starbucks thing that's right there.
That's a frappuccino.
That was what your thing cost?
No, I buy reusable cups.
Oh, okay. So Frappuccino. So a Frappuccino a day, Matt, is holding you back from your dream home, creating all those memories with your family. Does that make sense? So listen, I just gave you a kind of a high level picture of how that works. You figure out how that works for you, what kind of language you want to use, and build a formula like that, whether you're on the listing side or the buying side. I gave you the example on the buying side. If we're on the listing side, it would be a language dialogue like this. So Matt, you've lived here for 30 years, amazing memories. I know you really wanted 1.4, but we marketed the heck out of your property. We brought in 7 offers. This is the best offer. We worked this offer up to 1.370. They're not coming anywhere near that or more than that at all. And right now, you've made your decision. You're retiring down to Florida. You've got that beautiful condo in Fort Lauderdale. Are we really going to hold that decision and that move back for $8.21 that you lived and enjoyed for the last 30 years on this property, right? So you can do some math like that with that as well. Does that make sense, Matt? Great. Let's get that move started for you so you get down to that condo in Fort Lauderdale. So you can use it for both sides of the ledger. Hopefully that's a helpful, and believe you me, this was in almost 80–90% of my deals. I used to use a reduced to ridiculous. The casino close. Also use this often in the last stages of the negotiation. And it's, like it says, casino. Who's ever been to a casino before? Been to a casino, right? Okay. Anybody ever played poker? No. Blackjack? No. Okay,
Slots.
slots, okay. So let's, it works better for a poker game. So in a poker game, you can make bets, different kinds of bets. You know, I got all my chips here. I got 100 chips. I could put 5 chips out. That's a 5% of my stack. It's not a huge bet, right? I can put 20 chips out. I can put 100 chips out. They call that an all-in bet, okay? So you're giving them the lesson on how this casino analogy is working for their specific situation. So right now, I'm on the list. I'll give you the listing side first. On the listing side, we're at the 1.37, but you wanted 1.4. And we know we've worked up to 7 offers, 8 offers. This is as high as it's going to get. We're not getting $1 more from anybody else. We get 7 people show up today. So right now, Matt, you got 1.3,070,000 in chips right here, right now, that are yours. All it needs right now, Matt, is your signature, your autograph to accept those 1.3,070,000 chips. Understand what I'm saying with you, Matt? But what you're asking to do right now is you're asking, or you're betting, sorry, not asking, you're betting the stack of chips right now, all in, to make $30,000 more. Let's look at what that $30,000 really looks like. You can reduce the ridiculous for this, so you can combine these 2 techniques. So right now, Matt, what you're risking is $8 and was it 21 cents? Or so. You're risking $8.21 over the next whatever years to make an extra $30,000, and you're putting at risk all of this. And we know right now that this is the best we're going to get today. You know, maybe next week somebody comes and pays the 1.4, but right now this is what it is. Are you willing to make that bet, to risk everything you've got right now for the extra 30,000? That's the casino close, using the reduced the ridiculous as a backup. You can do the same thing with the buyer side. So right now, in your hands, we've got this offer, and maybe it's signed back at 1.4 and the seller's not going to die below that, and you wanted 1.37, but you have the capability, capacity to go 1.4. Are you willing to risk that white picket fence in the right area, school district, la, 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 for $8.21 and risk that all in bet and lose it? So it's called the casino close. Any questions on those 2?
I do.
Okay.
So let's say buyer puts in an offer for the 1.37, seller counters and says, no, I want 1.4.
Yep.
And as a buyer agent, my buyer's like, absolutely, I can't, absolutely not. Instead of just rejecting, would I call the seller's agent and say, listen, is there any room at all? Or would you just drop it?
So if your buyer is tapped out financially at 137, like there is no at all, like this is it, I would call the other realtor up and say, listen, I just want to be honest, transparent with you. This is actually our max. We do have this condition on financing here. If we accept this offer $1 more than 137, we're not going to get financing, and then we're just going to waste your seller's time, my time. So I know you signed it back to me at 1.4. Is it worth our while to reset it at 1.37? Or you just say, listen, I'm going to send it back because I hate to have it end in my hand. I'm just being, honest with you. This is really the maximum. So I'm going to send it back. You can decline it or you can accept it. But this is the very best. I'm being transparent with you, right?
So you can send it back with the same exact.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said earlier, it's tennis, right? Put the ball back in their court. Let it die there, not here. And it shows that, like, if you come back at the same number that you had just sent in, like you're either bluffing massively or it's the truth. Most likely it's going to be the truth, right? Because you're talking $8.21 a day if we're there for 30 years, right? Any other questions? That's my last slide too. Oh no.
No, this is your last slide.
This is my last slide. So the course is over, believe it or not. This is what I would recommend everybody's continue to do with the course. Practice, 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 drill, 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 rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. The business is amazing. It's been great to me for 31 years. It's been the only industry that I've ever professionally worked in as a full-time person. You know, I had other jobs, of course, as a kid, but I absolutely love this career, and it offers you so much if you put the time in and you don't procrastinate. You be proactive about things. I'm going to finish this session. I usually start my sessions with this. This time I decided to finish my session with this because I think it plants a seed in your mind and hopefully connects you to the program. It's a poem written by a guy named Dr. Dennis Waitley. Dr. Dennis Waitley was a psychologist, he's still alive, I believe. And he was the psychologist for the NASA astronauts who went into outer space back in the 60s and 70s. But he was also the US Olympic team's head psychologist for the Olympics during the 60s and 70s for Team America. And I took one of his programs called Winning to Greatness. It was like a week long, 8 hours a day. It was really cool. And my background is in psychology, as I said before. This poem that he created, I just absolutely love it. It's called Living on Someday Isle. So living, you can Google this if you want a copy of it. It's probably out there on Someday Isle. Dr. Dennis Waitley. One of my absolute favorite poems. There is an island fantasy, a someday isle will never cease. Will never see. When recession stops, inflation ceases, our mortgage is paid, our pay increases. That someday isle where problems end, where every piece of mail is from a friend, where the children are sweet and already grown, where all the other nations can go it alone, where we all retire at 41, playing backgammon in the island sun. Most unhappy people look to tomorrow to erase this day's hardship and sorrow. They put happiness on layaway and struggle through a blue today. But happiness cannot be sought, it can't be earned, it can't be bought. Life's most important revelation is that the journey means more than the destination. Happiness is where you are right now, pushing a pencil or pushing a plow, going to school or standing in line, watching and waiting or tasting the wine. If you live in the past, you become senile. If you live in the future, you're on someday isle. The fear of results is procrastination. The joy of today is celebration. You can save, you can slave, trudging mile after mile, but you'll never set foot on your someday isle. When you've paid all your dues and put in your time, out of nowhere comes another Mount Everest to climb. From this day forward, make it your vow, take someday isle and make it your now. So it's like one of my absolute favorite pieces of literature I've ever come across. And I took his course after I found this, and I've saved the actual time I downloaded this, was July 21st, 1998. It was my 28th birthday. And I was just Googling stuff. We had Google back then, believe it or not what it is today. And I was just Googling stuff because I was in a rut and I couldn't get out of it. And whenever my search for this thing came up, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And it's always resonated with me. And I found out that at that time he was doing courses, and I took his course, and it was like one of the most profound changing life events for me. It all started with that poem. So, do we procrastinate? 100%. We make up excuses and reasons why we don't do today what we need to do. Because if we don't do it today, then tomorrow, the 30 days, the 90 days, the 180, 365, it's never going to happen. And we live on that thing called someday out. Well, someday I'll do that. Someday my mortgage will be paid. I won't have any bills. Everybody's going to be a friend. I'm going to be sipping wine on the beach in Florida. Yeah, but if you don't do today the hard work and heavy lifting, you're living in that someday, that fantasy world. So you can Google that. It'll be up there somewhere on some website. If you can't find it, let Matt know. I'll make a copy. You can send it to you directly. But I really, really appreciate everybody staying with me for the 5 weeks. A lot of people do drop out because they don't, they want to do work. They're living on the Sunday aisle. That's why I usually started it with the first class to hopefully have people stay with it. But I think I'm going to change it and make it at the end because you guys are the real heroes and the real survivors and the real grinders that are going to actually not live on Sunday aisle. And if you have any doubt that you might, remember that poem. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. And we'll see you guys around the office, around events. And I wish you nothing but success. Because if you put into place what I've taught you and we share with you, you'll come up on stage during awards. You'll get a hug and a handshake from all of us and know that deep down inside that mine, when I do that, is legitimate. Like I'm genuinely so happy for you guys. It's not a show. It's like I want to see everybody reach their someday aisle, 100%. That makes me actually feel successful as a coach, as a trainer, as a broker, right? Is to see you guys reach whatever potential threshold you have. So when you get the handshake and the hug from me, not saying the other brokers, managers don't feel it genuine. I really do. I have deep relationships with a lot of our realtors here, and I hope, to make that even happen with all of you as well. So all the best to you. Have an amazing summer. Don't take summer off though, okay? If you take summer off, because 85% of the realtors are taking it off, you're going to have to ramp up your business when 85% are ramping it up in the fall. Do the hard things when nobody else is doing them, which is right now. I always, like I told you before, ketchup, mustard, and relish. I was out in the field giving those things out all the time, right now, because everybody else was at the beach or out doing other things. So the biggest part of my lead generation was when people were taking time off. So it would be June, July, August. And all that work translated into me running crazy in a fall market. Typically, realtors will slow their business down middle of November, December, January, February. I ramped my stuff back up. November, January, December. Got out there because nobody else was out there. Everybody was taking it easy, relaxed. 70,000 realtors. I don't want to be doing the same thing 70,000 realtors are doing. I want to do the same thing that only 2,000 or 3,000 hardworking realtors are doing, or 8,000, whatever the number is. So think of it from that other angle. Don't follow the herd. Be the leader, right? If you're following the herd, right now, the average realtor has only done one transaction this year in the Toronto Real Estate Board. You guys are not averages. Okay, so you guys are the difference makers, right? The ones that are going to do 7, 8, 10, 12 transactions per year per realtor in this office. So I wish you all the best. Anything you need, just reach out to Matt. Matt can get back to me, or you can reach out directly to me as well. I'm here to help. Just because the class has ended doesn't mean that my support has ended, okay? So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yep.
It was really a great session, actually.